Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Mustard Saves, and welcome to a What I Eat in a Day. Before we get started, I do want to leave the little caveat here that this is just one day of eating. I'm gonna admit right here that this day of eating isn't the healthiest. It's got a lot of salt, it's got a lot of spam, and it's just one day of meals out of my entire lifetime of meals. So if I'm missing anything nutritionally, that's okay because it's all about balance, you know? Also, as you can see, I'm not really all dolled up. I'm here to serve food, not serve looks. So, without further ado, let's jump into what I eat on a lazy Saturday evening. For breakfast, I've really been wanting to try making this North African dish called shakshuka. There's no way I'd be able to afford traveling these days, so making new dishes at home is one of the ways I'm able to bring the world to me. Once the onion starts getting translucent and the garlic has some fragrance, it's time to add in some chopped bell pepper. I had a bag of mini bell peppers that I just picked out the red and orange ones to keep the red color scheme and add the sweetness of the peppers. Now it's time for the peppers to have their turn to soften and for everything to start getting some color on them. After which, I added in a 16-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, and for seasoning, I have a teaspoon of cumin, paprika, and salt, but of course you can adjust this to your liking. And I actually ended up having to add more because I was using a 32-ounce can of tomato and eyeballing 16 ounces. From here, I just let my sauce cook down a little bit and thicken up before I cracked in 5 eggs. If you've got a couple extra dollars, feta cheese and some parsley is another popular addition, but we just kept ours pretty simple for today. For lunch, I was in the mood for some classic kimchi ramen. The easiest way to make it would literally just be to take your favorite ramen flavor and toss in some kimchi and boom, you've got kimchi ramen. But since I've got the ingredients to make things a little bougier, I made myself a little sauce with some gochugaru, gochujang, soy sauce, fish sauce, and some coconut cream for sweetness. You can use any kind of sweetener you like, but if I'm being honest here, I've had that can of coconut cream in my pantry for over a year, thinking it was coconut milk. And imagine my surprise when I opened the can to put it in something else and finding this translucent white gel instead of solid white coconut milk. I was a little disappointed at first, but now I have really discovered that this is a god tier level food. It is insanely sweet and has a really strong coconut flavor that I'm really just simping for, and I just put this stuff in everything. Anyway, personal problems aside, I've also got some good old store brand Spam to go in there. You can really add whatever else you want at this point. Things like mushrooms, tofu, fish cakes, rice cakes, pork belly, and green onion are all really tasty. I just didn't have any of those things today, and so I just kept it pretty simple with ramen, kimchi, and Spam. I would also highly recommend using a bigger pan than I have here. I honestly just kept with it because I didn't want to get another pan dirty after I realized it was too small. On this day, we were going to be going to my grandpa's house, and he'd been hinting at wanting some banana bread. He'll never just straight up ask me for anything, so I busted out my mom's old stand mixer and tried making my own banana bread recipe. I've made so many different banana bread recipes in the past, but I am just consistently losing the recipe for whichever happens to be my favorite at the time. So I figured it was probably time for me to try and figure out a recipe on my own. And I'll leave the recipe that I came up with for this trial in the description down below. Already we can tell that my butter wasn't quite soft enough to cream with the sugar, but I just pushed on and added in 2 eggs, one at a time, to let them fluff up and help with that texture a little bit. For my bananas, I didn't even bother mashing them ahead of time. With all the mixing, they were gonna mush themselves up anyway, especially if you're working with super ripe bananas or even like previously frozen ones, they'll just fall apart. For the milk, I didn't show it, but it's a half a cup of plant-based milk that I squeezed a little bit of lemon juice into, so that way it kind of curdled the milk and turned it into like a plant-based buttermilk type thing. And for my mix-ins, my grandpa is obsessed with pecans, so I put maybe 2 tablespoons of flour along with a heaping cup of pecan pieces. The flour supposedly helps keeps the pecans suspended in the batter and not sink to the bottom, but I'm not really an expert on that. I'm just following what I've seen other people do. This bad boy went into the oven at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes before I came to check on it, and let me tell you, it was still very goopy on the inside. So what I did was I put some tin foil over the top and put it back in for about another 20 minutes. The foil helps to steam the bread to cook it through to the middle and also to keep the top from burning. And if you're following along and you want to try this recipe, do this backwards. Put the foil on in the beginning and then later on take it off. Y'all, I was so proud of myself for this banana bread. My family thought it was really, really good for a first try and not using any recipe, but in our opinion, it did need to have a little bit more banana flavor, so I think I'll experiment with using more banana and maybe substituting some of the butter with yogurt and like maybe a couple other differences, but that's a hypothesis for another day. I wanted to stay on brand with my kimchi addiction, so we had kimchi pancakes for dinner. These are really easy to make. You just take however much kimchi you want and then take a knife or some scissors and chop them down to smaller pieces. My kimchi is a little on the older and more sour side, so I dropped in a spoonful of the coconut cream to help cut through some of that sourness a little bit. And then from here, you're going to add in equal parts of flour and cornstarch along with a splash of water until you've got a nice runny pancakey type batter. This recipe isn't really something that has measurements because not all kimchi is made the same. So in the name of science, the first pancake I made, I kept the batter on the thick side to show you kind of what not to do. When your batter is too thick, you have to drop the temperature down and cook them for a little bit longer to make sure everything cooks all the way through and even. And in my opinion, the end result is just too thick and chewy to be completely pleasant, at least compared to what it could be. So for pancake number 2, I've added more water to thin it out a little bit, and now we're getting somewhere. I have placed it poorly on the pan, but as you can see, I'm able to spread it out much easier. And as it cooks, you can see the top part starting to dry out a little bit. And when you flip it over, it's actually nice and crispy on the first try. And then off camera, I just went ahead and cooked up the rest of my pancake batter. And to serve, I paired it with some fried eggs and the rest of the can of Spam. So basically, I just made the same kimchi ramen, but instead of ramen, it was flour in a pancake form. And that's everything that I ate today, you guys. I hope I showed you guys a couple new things. Like, I've been seeing shakshuka like all over my For You page, and I really wanted to try it because it was so easy and it was so good. Like, it's definitely gonna turn into one of our breakfast favorites, or even just like brunch or lunch or dinner, whenever you want to have it. And then kimchi, I make my own kimchi. I've made my own kimchi for about 2 years now, and I'm obsessed. Like, I love pickles, so when I discovered kimchi, it was like, oh my gosh, a new pickle to my... Like I said, this was just one day of what I eat. I just wanted to share it with you guys, see what you thought of it. Maybe you've tried some of these, maybe you've never heard of some of these before. I don't know. I just really like sharing my day and what I make with you guys. So as always, if you like the video, please leave a like. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below. And if you want to see more money saving and food making content, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!